Morning. I like that my claim to fame was failing to get a bill passed into law. So it's a great way to start off the morning. But that's sort of the space we're in, right? The whole point of this is to fail and fail and fail until you figure out how to succeed. And we don't have as much of that going on in Hawaii as I think I would like. Often, especially at the state level, it's more of a failure to launch for fear that we're going to screw up once we get going. And we just cannot afford to do that anymore. Things are changing too fast, and it's too hard to stay here and make a living and maintain the Hawaii that we know and love without taking some chances and trying to fix things and change things. So that's why I got involved in all of this in the first place. That's why you guys most likely got involved in all of this in the first place as well. Sure, there's enormous, I think, opportunity and wealth-making potential, but it really has to be about more than that for you guys to all be in this room this morning. So I just want to acknowledge that out the start. I'm going to go from there into a bit of a gimmick. Honestly, I'm known as one of the tech minds in the legislature, and I'm an administrative law attorney who drives 3 kids around. That's pretty much what I do all day long. I don't know hardly anything about technology, and I was unsure about leading off the keynote this morning, so I did the Ask ChatGPT just to get started and make sure I wasn't veering way too far off the mark here. And so all I did was ask ChatGPT to explain blockchain technology to a 3rd grader. And so what it came back with is, imagine your whole school is playing a game of kickball. Everyone keeps score. Instead of one referee writing the score down on a clipboard, every team and every fan in the stands writes the score on their own scoreboard at the same time so that you don't have any sneaky changes on the points. And when a run is added, everyone checks that it's correct. Once they agree, the score is locked in and no one can erase a run or give extra points later. They should really do this in baseball, I think. No single boss is in charge of the score because everyone shares the same score, and you don't have to trust just one ref or the coach to keep it honest. So this is nothing new to everyone in this room, but that has to be the way we have this conversation outside of this room because of how many people across Hawaii have no idea what we're talking about and are naturally suspicious and biased toward maybe just waiting until this thing takes over everywhere else around the world, and then Hawaii can tag along. We'll hitch our wagon to everyone else once it's passed us by, and then we can just catch up. And that cannot be the way forward for us. It cannot be the way forward for us, right? So I thought about that a lot because that has to be the discussion that we have outside of these rooms. That's why the bill was vetoed. Honestly, that's why the bill was vetoed, because not enough people really understood what we were doing with digital assets, and they didn't want to take a chance. And I will tell you, we are reintroducing that bill this year because we finally have advocates who want to make it happen. Go ahead and clap, because you guys got to write testimony. That's right, everybody who clapped. You got to write testimony, you can remote in, you can come into the hybrid hearings that we have, but you have to participate. The reason we didn't reintroduce the bill is I needed people to push. I needed people to push us because the first try failed, and at the legislative level, we're programmed to react to controversy, and not enough people got mad about it, and not enough people pushed us, and so, nothing else happened. It has to come from the community. You guys have to help us and push us and move us, and if necessary, explain it to us like we're 3rd graders, right? Because this is a new frontier that we're in. We live in the future. We're living in the future right now. I like to say that a lot because it's true, and we cannot fight the tide. And so the real challenge for us as a community, but definitely in leadership positions, is how do we adapt? How do we bring the community along, and how do we adapt and maintain competitiveness and maintain resiliency? I led the effort during COVID to move the legislative process online. Prior to COVID, you had to show up in person and testify in public hearings. None of it was recorded and distributed for the public. Nobody saw the debates, the testimony, the votes, and there was a lot of pushback from legislators in the building when we proposed live streaming everything on YouTube, archiving it forever online, and allowing people to remote in for hearings so that they could testify via Zoom. There was a lot of pushback. And some of it was this concern that illuminating the legislative process that way might cast bad behaving legislators in a bad light. I actually think all it was just a fear of the unknown. People just really didn't understand what the implications were if you just started live streaming everything at the Capitol. I'll tell you, we ended up doing it. Right now, you can go on YouTube and you can look at all of the hearings in my Senate Commerce and Consumer Protection Committee from this last year. Each hearing, each 90-minute hearing, bookmarked by the piece of legislation that we took testimony on, and then bookmarked at the end of the hearing when we voted on them. And what we've come to find 4 years later is that there were really no substantive changes in the way we did business at the legislature. And it's because the vast majority of legislation that we work on is bipartisan governance. It's adapting the Hawaii tax code to the annual changes to the IRS code. It's conformity stuff like that. It's insurance bills. It's a bunch of boring stuff that people who are direct stakeholders come and participate in, and no one else pays attention to because there's no controversy, there's no fight. We're all in agreement. We're just governing and trying to make life better. The other part of it that didn't change is when there was a bill proposed on gun control or on banning cat feeding in public spaces or on Mauna Kea, 100 people would show up in the room and 40 or 50 people would show up online to testify. The same amount of people that would swamp our hearings and our processes for the controversial measures before we went online showed up after we went online. Nothing substantive changed for our process, but a huge change happened for the community. People that live on the neighbor islands no longer had to fly to Honolulu in the morning and catch a $40 Uber to the state capitol, or rent a car and pay for parking and sit in a hearing room all day to testify on a measure that often they would only get about 4 minutes or less to share their feelings on, and then get on a plane and go home. They could just wait their turn on Zoom, unblock their screen, testify, and participate meaningfully. So the impact on the broader community was enormous. The change inside the rooms where there was the most anxiety and concern was negligible. It almost didn't change at all. And now that we've adopted it, nobody even pays attention to the fact that you have to wait for the staffer in the hearing room to turn on the feed before we gavel in and take votes on things, right? And so the reason I tell that story is that's exactly the kind of conversation, and that's the process and the effort and the challenge that we have with blockchain. People don't understand it, so the natural tendency is to just fight it, right? Fight it until they're given a compelling reason to support it. And oftentimes, the most compelling reason is people with energy who care show up and express to decision makers that they should care too, and that there's a way forward, and there are people that are willing to put their energy and passion and take accountability for the risk that this change might bring, right? So that's why we need you guys. I didn't really introduce myself. I'm Jarrett Keohokalole. I grew up on the windward side. My wife and I grew up on Oahu. We went away to work and to go to school. We lived on the East Coast for a couple of years, and when it was time to have kids, we decided to come home because we wanted to raise them around my family and her family in Hawaii so that they were from Hawaii and they got to grow up the way I got to grow up. And what we found when we came back is that we were incredibly lucky to do that because that is so difficult to do. And that's why I ran for office, because it's hard to stay here and we need to make it easier. And I want my kids to be able to experience the Hawaii that I grew up in. And then beyond that, I want my kids to be able to experience the Hawaii that my grandparents grew up in, because those are challenging objectives to have, and I think our people deserve them. And we got to bring Hawaii into the now. You know, the state of Hawaii was designed in 1959, so it was built for the plantation economy of the 1950s. When we had 600,000 people in Hawaii and 5 big plantations and no highways, and it was just a different period. Fast forward to today, much of our state infrastructure is still designed for that plantation era, but we're having to deal with modern problems like 1.5 million people and meth and cybercrime and king tides and things that are happening today. So a lot of what we got to do is just adapt our systems, not always blow them up, but sometimes when it's necessary, so that we can make changes and bring us into the now and get ready for the future, right? Most of Honolulu, when you go outside this building, we're a modern city. We're a modern economy. Everybody has a smartphone. We're on par with most American cities in terms of our technology and our infrastructure, except our governing systems are still designed for a past that is gone, right? The modern times have passed our systems by. So we got to change them. That's really what I'm about. When it comes to blockchain, what does that mean? Well, when it comes to any type of commerce, that means protecting consumers that are especially vulnerable in Hawaii, because we can really only enforce against organizations that domicile here. It means setting clear rules that are fair and simple enough that they can be navigated. And that's about it, right? I mean, what else is there? So it's simple like that, but it's actually hard to execute without support from everybody like you guys who are really in the fight. I think I'll close with saying that the tendency is inertia, but I think our tradition in Hawaii is innovation. The fact that we had Native people here when Cook arrived means that people who were a month sail away, the closest society from here is a month away by canoe, where you navigate by the stars. So if that isn't some crazy innovation, then I don't know what is. That's a pretty good example of some crazy people deciding they're going to do something really, really innovative. And our cousins in Samoa and Tahiti, who I love, they decided to sleep in that morning when the Hawaiians decided to just sail north, right? We have this tradition of adapting and innovating. The whole Iolani Palace had electricity before the White House. That's another example. What were we trying to do there? We were trying to show that we're willing to adapt to the modern times. The plantation, the taro aquaculture system, the awai system that existed in Hawaii was of a level of complexity that existed nowhere else in Polynesia, right? Why? Because we're really far away from help, and we needed to have a very resilient agricultural system, right? The irrigation systems that were set up during the sugar era were innovative, and that led to Hawaii becoming a global capital of sugar. We could grow year-round in multiple seasons in very fertile soil, but you had to move the water. It turned out to be controversial in the long run, but it was very innovative in the moment, and it allowed us to capture global market share. So, to me, those are the traditions that I would like us to foster. Those are the traditions that we can look back to when we talk to the community around us who are a little bit hesitant about the change, right? It's never going to be perfect. It's definitely risky. There's always downside, but stagnation and status quo, we know where that's taking us, and nobody wants to be there, right? Right? Yeah, we got to change. Okay, anyway. I'll just stop. We had really cool conversations earlier about land titles, about voting, about Native Hawaiian intellectual property, about the economy, about how we got to get things moving. I love to be a part of all of those. I'm not an expert. I'm just a legislator. I'm sort of like a courier, right? You guys bring me the ideas. I will try and take them up the hill for you guys, but I need someone to help me push or pull or clear people out of the way. So let's do this. We can lead the way on these things. Everyone around the world is struggling in this fraught period we're in right now. There's a lot of transition going on, and transition means opportunity. I want to be there with you to help. We cannot do it alone. We all got to do it together. So Ellen, all of our sponsors, everybody who put this on this week, Honolulu Tech Week, thank you guys for allowing these spaces for these conversations. Let's have a great day today. Thank you so much. Aloha.